I'm John Mason, I'm Principal of ACS Distance Education. I started the school back in 1979. Now, prior to that, I'd studied horticulture and I'd done a diploma in horticulture, and I came out of that, ran my own business, a nursery, a landscaping business for a couple of years. And then I got a job as a park superintendent, and I was fairly lucky. There weren't too many people around who had horticulture qualifications, which I had. And I didn't have that much competition, so I ended up in a situation in 1973 where I became a park superintendent at Melton Council, and around that time Gough Whitlam was throwing money at councils, and I had 3 staff, and overnight the engineer came in and said, look, we've got a lot of money from Gough, I need you to increase your staff from 3 to 50. So all of a sudden I had this huge amount of money, a lot of staff, and I was a young guy, only like 24, 25 years old, and I'm running this big department with a lot of guys, so it was a steep learning curve. Yeah, look, the way I got into writing was I was working in horticulture, and I had qualifications in horticulture, so I built a reputation of knowing something about growing plants. That led to me basically coming up on the radar of people who were working in the gardening media. A friend of mine was the advertising manager for Your Garden magazine, and I popped up on the radar of the editor, and he asked me if I could write 1 or 2 articles for Your Garden magazine, which was a national gardening magazine, the only one in Australia at the time. That's back in 76, 77. Well, I wrote an article, I gave it to him, and he called me in and he said, John, you've done really, really well. Now here are my edits. And I looked at it, and there was more red marks on that piece of writing than what there were black marks that I'd put on the paper. And I was a bit disillusioned, but this guy, Alan Balhorn, he'd actually worked with Rupert Murdoch's father at the Herald Sun for his whole career, and he was in his late 60s or mid 60s, close to retirement, and he was good. You know, he really was constructive in his criticism, and I learnt a lot from Alan, and I learnt that you don't get perfect overnight. I kept writing articles for him, and then someone else heard that I was writing articles for him and asked me to write a book for the Department of Sport and Recreation in Victoria. And then because I'd done that, came to the attention of someone else, and the publisher in America asked me to write a book on children's playground design. And it basically just sort of grew from there. One of the key things to be successful as a writer is you need to write not just for your audience, but for the person who's paying you. Generally, those people know their audience, and if they don't know their audience, they're not going to stay in business. There are huge opportunities for people in horticulture. With a lot of change in the world due to technology and global pandemic, with globalisation, the world has changed dramatically since I first started, and as it continues to change, new opportunities come up and old opportunities fall away. One thing, we're always going to want to grow plants, we're always going to need plants. Plants provide us with food. Plants make our environment better. We know through research that if we have plants around us, people are healthier. There's actually research that shows people who go into hospital and are looking out at a garden tend to recover faster and come out of hospital sooner, maybe even 30% sooner. That saves on healthcare. It also just improves the quality of life for people. Without plants, we don't have that. Plants are important for so many things, so there'll always be plants around. Landscaping, there's always a need for landscaping. There's always a need for nurserymen to propagate and grow plants. There's always a need for vegetable farmers, fruit farmers and other growers to grow food crops. So horticulture is one of those areas of work which is always going to be there. There are opportunities for people to work across a whole range of different things in horticulture, but the bottom line in being able to work in the industry, in the horticulture industry, is to know your plants. Some people go and do courses. Some go and work and learn on site through their experience. Some just become very passionate. They get involved with garden clubs and volunteering at botanic gardens or community gardens, and that gradually evolves into opportunities to work in the industry, maybe part-time, and then eventually that leads on to full-time work in the industry. Some people develop their knowledge and understanding of horticulture, and then that leads on to them being able to start their own business. Maybe at first growing plants in their backyard, growing vegetables and then selling them at markets, growing plants in pots and propagating plants and producing things like that, and then taking them to local markets and selling them, or going down to a local nursery or garden centre and offering those for sale at a garden centre, and they might gradually build up a series of clients. They might end up propagating and growing plants like this and starting a small garden care business, and they can sell the plants as an add-on to their clients, or they can provide the plants to clients if they start a landscape business. All sorts of things you can do.